Bob MacDonald, thank you so much for joining me today. You are the Innovation and Technology Manager at Absoft, a leading UK-based SAP consultancy committed to transforming your customers' business processes and financial well-being. Welcome to the call. It's fantastic to have you here.
Hi, Brenton. Great to be here.
Fantastic. And today we're really going to be discussing your experiences and your journey and Absoft's journey into implementing a modernized AIOps platform, and that's Avantra. So I think the obvious first question is, what led Absoft down this route? Why did you decide that this was going to be of strategic importance to you and it was something you wanted to focus on? I think it was nearly 18 months ago now. Talk us through that journey. What brought you to this place?
Yeah, so we began with our own system that we'd kind of developed over the years and built up with the aim of automating the really basic basis checks. We'd started to reach a ceiling with that. It was in need of quite a lot of technical upgrade. It had flexibility issues. It was preventing us from developing our service. It was preventing us from going forward with what we wanted to go forward with in terms of automation. So we started to make a fairly classic build or buy decision.
Of course, yep.
That was the same time I saw your good self in videos that you were releasing about your platform and what you could do. And I thought this is very much on the message of what we're looking for. So having something that we could have a support team for, which freed me up personally from having to run the old system, having something that was already packaged, but also something that had that deep SAP monitoring, which really I've never found anywhere else, but combined with the flexibility to be able to actually build more with it and do more with it in terms of tuning and thresholds and so on, that would allow us to actually improve on what we were doing with the old system and make service improvements for our customers is what we were really looking for. And that was how we ended up with Avantra.
Fantastic. And yeah, and it by all accounts, it sounds like it's been a great implementation. And in terms of that, obviously you've implemented this flexible platform. It's now doing a lot of the work for you in certain circumstances. Are you seeing time savings in those daily lives? How has it impacted the way that your teams are working on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so initially this was a challenging topic for us because the automation we already had for daily checks meant that we didn't have the classic, we're going to save 30 minutes per system per day from not doing those checks by hand. What we did have with the old system was the flexibility around tuning and so on meant that we couldn't make it log support calls automatically. So we were still dealing with like a kind of two-stage process. So we'd have a big heap of alerts, we'd look at them all, we'd ignore most of them by hand and then log calls manually for what was left. So we've completely removed that process. So that has saved us some time. And that time has been used for other things, which has been good. We're now in a situation where we can say that 57% of what gets logged in our system, in our support system, is proactively logged by Avantra, i.e. not by a customer experiencing a problem, because we're doing that much more quickly now than we ever were with the old system. So that's kind of been the big time save improvement for us, and the improvement to how we've managed time, as it were, or worked, has come from that flexibility and the ability to tune things.
Yeah, and talk to us about the actual platform maintenance. So you mentioned in the kind of the older solution you had, it was quite difficult to keep up to date and to keep running. Have you seen benefits in that space when running Avantra? How have those upgrades gone and keeping the platform going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've now, of course, we get the updates from you as a provider, which has been a big change in itself. The update process is very straightforward, particularly for those of us that are used to some SAP software there. It's deployed, it just works. There's always new functionality coming out as well, which is always good to see, and we can always kind of try that out when we get the major releases. So that's been really good, and it definitely has achieved my aim of kind of freeing myself up as the kind of owner or developer of the bespoke platform that we had before, because it now means, for example, it's not me. I've never installed or applied an update to Avantra. It's others that do it, and they can work directly with your support, which has been a big part of what we wanted to achieve, and it's definitely something that we have achieved, which has been really good.
Fantastic. And obviously you're a big Azure shop, Absoft and Azure, that really is a massive part of your partnerships. How is the single pane of glass across, obviously some customers are still on-prem, some are in Azure. Is Avantra helping you with that hybrid deployment scenario within your customer base?
Yeah, so certainly the majority of the customers that we manage and have in Avantra are in Azure, but we do have quite a few that are on-prem as well with the customer networks. So certainly the product works well on them both. The standard functionality in Avantra for doing for example, the stopping and starting the SAP systems. Now it doesn't sound like a big thing, but again, that's something that we previously had as a home developed product where we do the SAP stop and start, which is connecting to like one big heap of APIs, then connecting to the database to stop and start that, and then connecting to the Azure platform to stop and start the VM. And of course, that's the important bit for cost. Now,
of course,
doesn't sound like much, but you make that and it works for one customer, and then you deploy the same code somewhere else. And of course, they're using a different database or a different version of one of the SAP APIs, and then it all fails. So you've got to then change the code, and then it changes what should be a trainee job into a senior job, because you've got to fiddle with code, etc. So the fact that Avantra can do that stopping and starting of those machines is in itself something that we just don't need to worry about anymore. That button's just there, so we can hit it. Brilliant. We can give the customer to the button. Give the button to the customer, and they can press it. We've got that ability just built in, which has been very, very helpful in itself for that product. But we've also built quite a few custom checks in Avantra as well that connect to other Azure APIs for doing things like backup monitoring and so on. So to go to your point there about the single pane of glass, everything that we need from Azure for running an SAP system in Azure, we can pull through into Avantra, and we do get that single pane of glass. And in some cases, you mentioned on-prem there, but we actually have customers who run their own Azure as well. So what we do in those cases is they actually get the Avantra alerts about Azure problems, go straight to the customer. Brilliant. And they don't even come to us. So that's been a good efficiency saving there as well. So that's quite good.
And you've kind of alluded to your automation strategy there, because that's a big part of competitive advantage at the moment. How has Avantra helped Absoft with the evolution of the automation strategy?
Yeah, so it's definitely been an enabler in terms of skill set. It's definitely meant that we have a product, we have a focal point, we have something that's set up and is connected to every SAP system we monitor and run. So we've kind of used it as a bit of a central point or a jumping off point for doing Ansible automation as well. So there's a lot of Ansible automation that to some extent we're already using, but it's always quite challenging because you've got like a whole different setup there of it being connected to everything, a whole different skill set. What we now have is things that Avantra does and does well, which are SAP specific, like the stopping and starting of the systems and so on, we can do within an automation in Avantra, and then we can call that out to Ansible to do something more operating system specific. Now, previously, to get started on that journey, you were looking at somebody learning about 5 different programming languages and the whole open source ecosystem around that. Right. Now you can really say, right, you're a SAP basis expert, you need to learn Ansible, there's no way around that, but what you can then do is build an automation job. And that was one of the first things that we did get working in Avantra, was things like operating system patching. Again, it's a straightforward example, and again, we had something home developed before, but now with the fact that the stop and start is there, the scheduling is there, all the connectivity, the database of the systems is there, we've got the monitoring of whether or not operating system patching has worked, we've got dashboards for the customers to see if it's worked so they can track it, we've got all that in one place, and it's able to then kind of leapfrog out to actually run the patching. So it has been a big enabler in that sense, because people are now not spending time fiddling with the monitoring or the platform. They're getting straight into the difficult bit of actually doing whatever it is they're trying to automate, and all that framework's there for them to use. So, and again, it kind of comes down to something that has its own set of documentation, that has a support partner, that has everything there for us. Right. That's enabled us to deliver automation that previously we were only ever really getting to as, proof of concept from someone that was very senior.
That makes absolute sense. And, your customers are really starting to see the benefits of that. They're getting the alerts themselves. I mean, this is really fantastic stuff. So is Avantra helping you grow this side of the Absoft business? Are you seeing measurable positive stuff there?
Yeah, there's absolutely pressure to be constantly automating, to be reducing cost. We all know that's always out there. It's also what, of course, we should be doing, as a good partner to our customers. So certainly where we see with Avantra is that we can add more basically take on more as a result of having that there. So things like, for example, again, to use my operating system patching example, now prior to SAP running in Azure and running in the cloud, that was just something that was never a responsibility of a SAP MSP. Now it is. So it's something that we can start to take on there as an additional scope item. Now there's much more exciting things in the functional world there that you can then do as well, where you can start to say, well, actually, are we monitoring whether or not your SAP system is available, or are we monitoring whether or not your business processes are running? So you can start to say at the point, you can start to add scope to services as well as reducing the cost of the scope you're already delivering. And there is certainly a way to package that together into a way that results in growth, or certainly preservation of revenue against a pressure to do things more efficiently.
Absolutely, and no business is immune to that requirement these days. Whether you're a software provider, an MSP, I think we all have to be looking at how do we automate, how do we do more with the team that we have, how do we provide a better service, and talk to me about your customer experience. Do you feel like your customer experience has improved through this real ability to focus on automation through time savings, but also the actual implementation of the platform itself? What are you seeing in that space?
Yes, we've certainly brought people around to the idea of expecting things to be monitored and expecting things to be proactive. And that's been really interesting for me, actually, because we'd initially started to say that if we, for example, if we get something logged with us by a customer, we will track the fact that, why did we miss that? Should we be monitoring that? And then the same goes for the solutions. Should we be monitoring that? Should we be automating that solution to that problem? So we kind of started to bring that in as a kind of cultural thing within our team. But what I'm now starting to notice actually is customers, when they do log something, and though it's happening less and less, what they'll actually they will ask the question. So we're actually kind of raising the bar and raising the expectation a little bit. And I just had an example of that just the other day, where something was not working, and they actually even mentioned Avantra in the email, and they're like, "Why did Avantra not pick this up?" And we're like, "Well, I'll tell you, and we'll sort that out. That will happen for next time." So that's been certainly an expectation raiser in that one, and the one that we've been able to meet and deliver. The other thing that's possibly even a slightly more positive story is that we've been able to use Avantra collaboratively. Now, our old system was very much internal use only. It was just the whole user interface of it, the whole way it was designed. It was designed for us to use, and all it did was really just spat out alerts to us. We didn't have that ability to bring it up in a screen share in a meeting. Now, with Avantra collecting so much details about how the customer systems are configured, it collects so much about what versions you've got and so on, it gives you all that ability to dive in and investigate an issue with the performance metrics and so on it's collected. It's not just us that can use that. So although we do use that, we can use it either in a service review meeting with the customer, but we can also use it, they can use it, we can give them access to it, and they can log in and see their own data. And where we work collaboratively with one of their teams, there's bits of our service that might be, or things that Avantra covers that we maybe don't for that customer. So they might, for example, BW internally, but we do everything else, something like that. So they, in that case, they can log in and they can look at those themselves, so they can be the ones that get notified, and we can work with them on it. So there's like a kind of collaborative experience starting to build, and that's been quite exciting. We've been quite keen to see how far we can take that, where that can go. In terms of differentiating.
Fantastic, and that's as you say, that's a really positive customer experience story. They're aware of the platform, they're aware of your strategy of automation, which is obviously making them want to work with you on this stuff, and so as a result, less likely to churn. And these are important things when running a business like yours. So that's fantastic to hear. I kind of only have one more question, Bob, which is, can you speak to how your innovation strategy has evolved, not just because of Avantra, but what's coming down the line? What's next for you guys that's really exciting you, and that's powered by these best of breed solutions that you're implementing?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Certainly our innovation strategy at the moment, we see big possibilities in SAP on Azure, and doing more and more there. And how that all fits in with the business technology platform and the general move to the cloud. I think there's a big upturn this year in S4HANA as well, which is good to see. So where Avantra is kind of helping us with that, aside from the really obvious point of freeing people's time up to work on these innovative things and bringing these new solutions to customers, the sort of, to give one really specific example, S4HANA readiness has been a really big question this year. So a lot of people are starting to say, is our system ready for S4HANA? What's the business case look like? Can we develop that? And SAP have got so many tools, and we have some of our own tools that we can use to assess the system and work out, is this ready for S4HANA? What technical problems are you going to have? Things like the BSR reports and the actual readiness check itself, etc. Anyone who's tried to run any of those knows that you commit to the meeting with the IT director the following week, and then you discover that the basis team need a week and a half to implement all the SAP notes to get the thing working.
Yes.
So when we first had that problem, what we said was, right, we're going to put custom checks in Avantra. We're going to monitor every single customer system. Have they got that connectivity in place? Have they got various other technical issues? Are those issues there? So we now know that every customer system we're monitoring, we can then run these reports without hitting all those snags and problems. So it's essentially about trying to get the ship in order so that we've got the right platform to then build from for something as major as an S4 project.
Nice.
So that's been quite interesting in itself. I think to be a bit more specific about where the cloud things are going, I think there is definitely a picture of things, for example, running the whole of S4HANA in the cloud. But what we're seeing even more of in the short term, and what I think's been more common in the current market, has been people connecting cloud services around the core. They innovate around the core picture. So whether that's hyperscaler services or business technology platform, it's happening in a big way. So that introduces this whole big heap of new connectivity requirements. It brings in this whole big heap of a much more hybrid landscape of a lot more things need to be working for an overall process to be working. And they're new things that are stretching people. So what I'm really glad about is that as people are learning about new cloud services and connecting them to SAP, what they're not then having to worry about is learning about how to do bespoke monitoring in the background, because we've kind of got that ability there, and we've got that platform there, and we've got all the existing systems that are under control. And we can say, if we're trying to get something new working and we say, why is this not working? Is SAP down? Like, no, it's not down, because if it was down, we would know if it was down. Of course, you'd always know if it was down, but it can be a much more complicated problem. And that kind of deep monitoring, things like SSL certificates, it's like we don't need to be thinking, is it a certificate issue? Like, we don't need to be thinking about it because we know that's covered. So it's all about, to me, it's about having that kind of platform for building these new things that we're doing next, and having that culture that then comes forward into whatever the new world is technology wise. That to me is where we're.
Fantastic, and that sounds like brilliant stuff in the sense of being able to focus on these proactive things, having that foundation in place, and then being able to trust it. Do you have any sense of the improvements in time availability that you're seeing within the team?
Yeah, I don't think I have absolute numbers, but I think the percentage at the moment of time that our basis team specifically spends on proactive versus reactive, and as I say, our basis support team, I should say.
Right.
We are looking at 45% proactive by time now, which kind of fits in. I think I mentioned earlier that it's 57% in terms of call volume, but it's 45% by time, and that includes things like proactive reporting around readiness for S4, etc., that proactive piece, as well as doing things that are about preventing future problems, etc. So it's been certainly, I'm not sure exactly where that percentage would have been before, but I know it was an awful lot lower. It was, there's a lot more time now being spent on working with our customers, getting more about where are you facing issues, what do you need to solve, trying to be a bit more focused on what they need, and then actually doing that groundwork for them as part of the service so that we can then do some great things off the back of it. And it's about having that capacity in the support team, I think, to be able to do things like that. That's been it's been really critical to us, frankly.
Fantastic. Well, Bob, I can only thank you for talking to me today on this. The partnership between Absoft and Avantra it's been fantastic. And I'm sure that we're going to see some amazing things coming out of the future, and, hearing how it's impacted the partnership between you and your customers and the way that your team operates, that's music to our ears. It's exactly where we want our customers to be going. So thank you for sharing those stories. And hopefully we'll speak again soon and give people an update the next time as to how things are evolving for Absoft. So thanks again, and speak to you soon.
Thank you. Yeah, I love speaking about this topic, so anytime I'm free.
Fantastic.